What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so before I get into this video, shout out to the brother Joseph Jack for the donation to the channel via the PayPal. Much respect to you for showing love to Too Raw for TV. Okay, so one of the video requests that I received, they want me to talk about what the NBA could have been like if in a post Michael Jordan league, Penny Hardaway and Grant Hill never got hurt. Now, of course, they mean seriously hurt because players are going to deal with injuries to a certain extent, but I'm pretty sure they mean seriously hurt. Now, of course, these two players had career-altering injuries. Penny Hardaway, I think he started having knee problems, I want to say after his fourth year or during his fourth year, around 1997, 98, I think, which would have been, around his third or fourth year, he began having knee problems, but it seriously began impacting his game probably around 1998, 1999. So it's like Penny's prime was so short. Grant Hill's prime was almost as short. Grant Hill's ankle, which at first was seen as not a serious injury. I remember that going into the 2000 playoffs, it was seen as though his injury was, of some concern, but not as serious as it wound up being. Of course, what happened was we saw, like 4 years in a row where he was seriously injured, missed a substantial amount of games, and even acquired a staph infection that almost unalived him. So, and he was never the same after that. Never the same. Lost his quickness, lost most of his quickness, lost all of his explosiveness. So, he was not the same player afterward. Couldn't move the same, etc. Penny Hardaway, he had to have microfracture surgery on his knee, I think both knees, and he was never the same. So what would it have been like had these two guys stayed healthy? Now, of course, when he says the post-Jordan era, I'm assuming he means after Chicago, even though Michael Jordan came back and played for the Washington Wizards. I'm pretty sure he means from the 2000s onward. Well, hell, I think the NBA would just obviously have been that much stronger. First of all, we have to look at the fact that that would have probably meant, well, let's go with this. Let's go with Penny Hardaway still being traded away. And let's say he still gets traded to Phoenix, although I'm trying to remember all of the details because it was quite a while ago. But let's say that Orlando still wants to rebuild from the Shaq Penny era and they trade him, but Penny has none of the health issues. He just wants to go to another environment, a contending team. Well, if he goes to Phoenix and he's the Penny Hardaway that we had seen, the couple of years before or at that time, I can't help but think that the Phoenix Suns become contenders. Now, I'm not saying that they would have contended against Shaq and Kobe, but I think because you got to remember at that time, Penny was 2000, 2001. Penny was what? In his late 20s. So if they could have kept that team together in Phoenix for a couple of years, and like I said, I don't know how those pieces would have, how everything would have interacted if Penny had stayed in Phoenix for an extended period of time. But if they could have kept that team together in the post Shaq Kobe era in LA by 2004, well, who knows? Who knows? Whatever the case may be, Penny Hardaway helps to elevate the league even further because you have another star in the NBA. He becomes, in my opinion, let's say he still plays 15, 16 years. Or maybe let's say he plays 17, 18 years because his prime is extended. Let's say of those 17, 18 years, uh, 11, 12 to 13 of those years, he's an all-star, a perennial all-star. I actually believe, and maybe I'm not in the majority here, but I actually believe that Penny Hardaway was the greater talent. Shaq one time said that peak Penny, the peak Penny that we saw, was about where Kobe was in his fifth season, which would have been what, 2001? So if Penny could have progressed as a basketball player, I think we're talking about a guy, especially if he could have won some championships. I think he could have been, now I don't think he would have won 5 championships, but if he won a championship, is it out of the realm of possibility saying that Penny would be a top 15 to 20 all-time player? I mean, because when you look at Penny Hardaway, I honestly, I really didn't see many weaknesses. I didn't only saw really one, and I think that he would have worked on that. I mean, think about this. This is a guy who played point guard, who could play like Magic Johnson. He could play like Magic Johnson. So this was what made Penny Hardaway so effective to me. He could go out there and have a bad shooting night, but he could still go out there and dominate a game with his passing. Not to mention the fact he was a great passer, great playmaker, and he could throw no-look passes, lobs. He was a great, great pass. He wasn't a guy out there just throwing, rudimentary passes, padding his numbers. He was a great, great passer. Then he was a above average to good defender. Not locked down, in my opinion, but he was good, and he would have gotten better. And at times he had flashes where he was a good defender. He was great in a fast break situation. He could yam on you. You know what I'm saying? Like, surprisingly, you know what I'm saying, in the fast break, he could dunk it on people. You know what I'm saying? He could post you up as a guard, which is a completely lost art now. He had the mid-range. The one weakness that I saw at first was he wasn't a great three-point shooter, but he would have gotten better at that. And in that era, it still wasn't necessarily a requirement to be a knockdown three-point shooter. To knock them down, yes, but you could get away with being a 33, 34% three-point shooter then, or 32% three-point shooter then. He was a good rebounder, and he was a good vocal leader. I like Penny Hardaway, man, and I think he would have been so influential had he stayed healthy. Grant Hill, now, this is where things get interesting. Now, we all know that Grant Hill signed with the Orlando Magic in the 2000 offseason. Also signing on that team was Tracy McGrady. They almost signed Tim Duncan if Doc Rivers doesn't blow it by saying that his wife can't come with him as far as touring the touring Orlando and touring the facilities, and Doc screwed that up. Doc screwed that up totally because Doc Rivers was the head coach at the time of the Orlando Magic. But let's just say David Robinson still talks Tim Duncan out of signing with Orlando. But even if it's just Grant Hill and Tracy McGrady, that tandem, if they're healthy, could have been something akin to Pippen and Jordan. By the way, people forget this. Tracy McGrady, although he showed he could be a great scorer, actually would have probably have been more of a Penny Hardaway. Excuse me, more of a Scottie Pippen. He was of the element that he would have been more of a passer, and Grant Hill would have shot the ball more. Even though Grant Hill was the prototype to a LeBron James with the Detroit Pistons. And by the way, had Grant Hill never got hurt, Grant Hill would have been the prototype for LeBron James. A guy that could do it all. A guy that could score. A guy that could rebound. Matter of fact, I would have contended Grant Hill was a better rebounder than LeBron James. A guy that could facilitate. A guy that was a tremendous one-on-one player. He was much better one-on-one, in my opinion, than LeBron James. Quickness, the crossover, the explosiveness. Grant was that dude. And Grant was legit dunking on shot blockers. Like, that dunk over Tumbo, my God. Rest in peace, big fella. But Grant Hill was that guy, man. And I think that with a healthy Grant Hill and a healthy Tracy, a healthy Penny Hardaway, with all the other stars in the NBA at that time, it would have been the greatest era in the history of the league. Some people think the 2000s is amongst the greatest, along with the 80s and 90s. But if they could have been healthy, I think that the 2000s would arguably be the greatest era in the history of basketball. Because, like I said, the Orlando Magic team, especially if they could have gotten Tim Duncan, they would have been the dynasty team of much of the 2000s, in my opinion. Because I think that team with a Tim Duncan, Tracy McGrady, and Grant Hill, they could have contended against Shaq and Penny, in my opinion. Now, I think the Lakers still would have been deeper, but my God, like, the Magic would have had the Magic would have had a better big three than the Heatles from a decade later. So that would have been tremendous. And then let's say you have Penny Hardaway floating around there in the Western Conference. Let's say he's out in the West and he elevates a team to at least give the Lakers a little bit of a challenge. I don't think they would have beaten whoever team he was on. But man, plus the other teams out there, and got young Garnett, young Tracy McGrady, young Allen Iverson, Vince Carter, all the others, Paul Pierce, Antoine Walker. Man, the star power of that time, man, unbelievable. Sam I Am, Robert Horry. Yeah. I'm gonna tell you another thing too. Another guy who I think injuries ruined him, and he could have had a borderline Hall of Fame career. Antonio McDyess. That's another guy that in his prime had a 43-inch vertical leap, athletic, was supposed to be a star with the New York Knicks, but if I remember correctly, he suffered a horrendous injury during the preseason. What was it? Was it 2001, 2002? Can you guys imagine if Allen Houston didn't get hurt in 2003 with his knees and his career had extended more? Same thing with Larry Johnson. What if his career was a little bit longer? I mean, I know, look, players get hurt, but man, we had a lot of guys in the 2000s who would have benefited greatly from the advancements in medicine from today. But anyway, this has been fun going down this path with y'all. But yeah, I think that Grant Hill and Penny Hardaway, had they been healthy, they would have been the influential players of today. I think they would have influenced players almost as much, if not as much, as Kobe Bean Bryant did. I'm not saying they would have won many championships, but that 1990s, 2000s era is the greatest era of basketball along the 1980s that we've ever seen. And they're the ones that built the NBA up. But anyway, tell me what you guys think about this.